Yeah, we are Plymouth Energy Community. I am Alistair McPherson, and I'm the Chief Executive for Plymouth Energy Community and PEC Homes. So I've done the welcome piece, and I think I've covered the house rules. But largely that slide in front of you sets out, our agenda for the next hour and what we need to get through. So I'm just going to talk briefly on the background to Plymouth Energy Community, who we are and what our mission is. So we are a charity and social enterprise with a cooperative kind of ethos in terms of how we operate. So we're about community energy and community-led solutions to fuel poverty and the climate crisis. We are about improving the ownership of local people over their solutions to the energy challenges we face, both in terms of fuel poverty and climate. And we are seeking to work to increase community confidence, to engage in those issues, and allow people to heat and power their homes affordably. That's what we set out to do in 2012, and we've made a reasonable stab at it, and pretty proud of what we've achieved in that time since then. We are at heart an organisation that does two things within that. We develop, we own, we manage renewable assets, and we have 6 megawatts of completed solar installations that we have built out across the city. So the solar farm in that slide there is 4 megawatts, and then we've got 2 megawatts on schools and community organisations across the city. So as an organisation, we've been successful in developing those projects, raising the finance both through commercial routes and through community finance routes. And now we manage those assets. So we as an organisation will be around for a long time because we've got those responsibilities before us. The flip side of what we do is around energy advice. So we have a team currently of 7 energy advisors working in the grassroots of the city, working with people around fuel poverty and affordable warmth issues, tackling a range of, domestic kind of poverty and energy issues, and advising. At a large scale across the city, we rolled out 1,000 home visits. So going into people's homes, providing face-to-face environment, we rolled out 1,000 home visits, which was one of the biggest domestic energy face-to-face advice exercises being completed in the UK in recent years. And we did that as a community organisation. We're also investing heavily in, effectively capacity to help with the sort of able to pay households, not just the fuel poor, and the moving forward in terms of retrofit coordinator roles and things like that in the future. We've been around since 2012. Again, we were like, this was our figures from last year. Last year we helped 2,800 households. We're saving those households on average about £350 per annum. So the total savings across where we've been in the year is at 464,000. Just last year we gave so 2,800 households were supported, but we went beyond just supporting those just through events and phone conversations to actually go into their households with 800 of them. We generate a lot of energy. We are a substantive generator in the city's kind of renewable portfolio. We own and manage 20% of the renewable energy generated within Plymouth. So we're a community business that has proven itself. As we've grown and matured as an organisation, our ambition to have more substantive impact in the housing market has grown, and it's grown into this idea of PEC Homes. PEC Homes is about community-led zero carbon housing. We're interested in retrofit solutions to those problems, but equally in new build problems. And today we'll be talking about new build solutions around community-led zero carbon housing. It's core to what PEC is got to do. Emissions from our homes are massive. It's a huge problem in relation to generating fuel poverty, and we think there is a credible alternative that can be led from the community using some innovative approaches that could be replicated and be a national exemplar. So at heart, we want to give local people the chance to choose a comfortable home. We want them to have low bills. We want to have a fair rent. We want to be, a cooperative landlord that can kind of support sustainable lifestyle. And we care about the health and well-being of our future tenants within there. And we're interested in generating long-term, not just houses, but places, and shaping different places. So that, as a group, we've got some broad and bold ambitions there. Specifically today, we're going to be talking about our energy ambitions and the sort of net zero challenge. So we are a community land trust. The PEC Homes has been established as a community land trust vehicle, so we anticipate being here in perpetuity to hold property which has net zero kind of credentials for the long term. Crucially, as a community land trust, we're not just here about one project. In the middle of that statement, the word pipeline is key to us. We're a community-led net zero developer. That's where we see ourselves. We want to be a long-term asset owner of those houses, but it's not just getting this one project over the line. We're about developing a pipeline. We're currently talking to you today about the opportunity for 38 net zero units, affordable net zero units in Plymouth. We're in conversations with other community-led organisations, which brings the pipeline of about 120 units, and having ongoing conversations with the City Council about how we could support them with their city housing need. Our track record to date through the Plymouth Energy Community project has allowed us to build a strong team. We're not, this isn't a community organisation that's doing it on a wing and a prayer. We have a professional team working to bring this initiative forward. That includes myself and John and Kat and Justin, who are experienced project managers and community engagement specialists who have been working with PEC for many years on other energy efficiency and renewable projects. We've got George, who speaks to later, who brings a track record from Cornwall Community Land Trust, and Robin as our QS, providing expertise around cost. We've got Ian as well, who will be talking later, who brings expertise from Energy Strong UK, and which is the driving for I guess our approach, which is why we're talking to you, because it's different from doing things normally. We've also established, again, off the back of the track record we've had elsewhere within the city, a really strong board of non-execs. Ian translates across, and he'll talk about this in his own slot, but he is also on the board. We've got Clive Turner, and background as the chief exec of the largest social landlord in the city, Plymouth Community Homes. He's now retired from that role. We've got, I won't talk through all their CVs, but we've got a councillor who, Chris Benberthy, he's been involved with Plymouth Energy Community from its outset, and also has a portfolio for housing within his city council job. Got property lawyers and a background, and others with experience within the social enterprise sector and building services sector in terms of Pia Warren, Greg Hutton, Hilary Kalinsky, and Michelle Virgo. So we're really proud of the strength and depth that we've managed to build. So whilst as an organisation we were really new, and PEC Homes was only sort of formally registered in March, and we've got a lot more depth of experience and thinking behind that. Likewise, our partners, we've aligned backing from the City Council for the land for the site that we'll be talking about today. We've got Energy Strong UK talking today, who I believe what we do, Cornwall Community Land Trust, and obviously also background backing from Powder Change in terms of financial backing and support, both in terms of cash and in line time from National Community Land Trust, Powder Change, and we have development revenue budget from Homes England to take our scheme through to REBA Stage 4. I put that slide there because it's about the pipeline. Plymouth is a growing city. It's looking at about 1,100 new homes a year. About 26,700 homes by 2034, and we want to see community-led net zero to be a very substantive part of that. That's our ambition. Again, it's about driving and disrupting the normal way of delivering housing within our locality, and trying to bring innovation in that space. I'm going to skip that one. Time covered that. So, a PEC Homes Development will. These are our statements. So deliver community-owned, warm, affordable, desirable net homes. We want them, crucially, to be flagships for innovation. We want to disrupt. We want to innovate. There are plenty of affordable housing providers out there that have more experience than us in this space. We're not trying to replicate that. There are other people in it working to create affordable homes in the city. What we're trying to do is bring a grassroots kind of community-led angle to affordable housing provision that really pushes the boundaries of innovation around the net zero challenge that we face. And in doing that, we want to demonstrate, we see this as an exemplar. It's a demonstration of a model that is working elsewhere. Demonstrate that cost model that can support a kind of replicable. We're not after a grand designs project. We don't want to just do one nice scheme. We want to prove something that shows there's an ongoing way that net zero can be built and financed that's better than business as usual, and do that without ongoing government support. So we're trying to do something different, so just going down the normal process of design and kind of isn't our approach, and we know we want to build in the innovation that is out there in the housing supply chain. So that's the purpose of why we gathered you here today, to have that conversation and understand your appetite for innovation, how we build that into our design process and our design team. Those are the questions that we're posing really within our expression of interest. We are mindful that procurement is going to be an important part for us. We're going to be in receipt of government money to make this home work, and therefore public procurement regs will be key, making sure that we're doing that right. So our approach to procurement will be key. So Energy Sprong UK is the model, the approach that we're going to do to utilise. It's Energy Sprong UK isn't a product. It isn't there's not a commercial kind of angle to that. They're an organisation that is around market development to try and effectively put themselves out of business by transforming the market to get to net zero. So we're partnered with them at the moment, and Ian will be talking around that to see how we integrate that approach that has been used very successfully in Holland to deliver 12,500 both retrofit and new build elsewhere. So that model is working on the continent. It's a model that is different because we are looking from the development and the developer, or the solution provider, as you will have picked up in the documentation. We're looking for a number of things that are different. We're looking for performance guarantees of the housing product around energy performance. This isn't just on a sort of like a modelled performance of a building using RDSAP or the equivalent. These are something that our solution provider will guarantee for us. We're looking to use those guarantees to back a business model that leverages those long-term energy bill savings coming from those guarantees to support the higher capex cost of net zero. That's the crux of what we're trying to do here. And that is different, and that requires innovation and conversations with solution providers before we get into the detail of design. We recognise, we need to support the supply chain. Our supply chain, it's a kind of partnership and collaboration to make this happen. This isn't something that's happened commonly in the UK, and therefore us working with Energy Sprong UK and with yourselves is key to us moving forward. And this influences the point I made before. It is about how we procure, how we build our design team for this project will necessarily have to be different because we need to build that innovation into our design thinking. And so how we engage with the market and build that market into our kind of project, it will probably necessarily be different. So those are the 4 strands of our approach being different, and that's why hopefully you're here to learn a little more. So of our pipeline projects, we have a first one. We have a site with progressed terms of reference with the heads of terms with the City Council that can deliver 38 affordable homes on it, net zero homes on it. It's in the northwest of the city. And I'm going to hand over at this point to George Lewis, who's our development manager, who will talk a little bit more about the current status of that project.
you, Alistair. I'll just share my slides and
stop sharing mine. I think that allows you to take over.
Right, so the site at Kings Tamerton is a greenfield site. In terms of planning, it's being delivered in 2 parts, and you can see on this picture that there's a central crescent of lighter coloured homes over to sort of the left-hand side of the screen. That's being delivered privately by Land Development Southwest, and the area that PEC Homes are looking at are the blue, beige, brown, and green homes that are over on the right-hand side of the screen. It's a site that slopes downwards towards the southeast, and this next slide shows you, which you'll have in your packs, the outline planning application reference. So it's part of a hybrid application, and it's been in for a while, and we're expecting determination at some point in July. Quite a lot has already been done by way of surveys. So the ecology survey is at a very advanced stage, and there's a mitigation plan that's been drawn up that covers the whole of the site, and a lot of site investigation has been done looking at ground conditions, soakaway tests, and so on. And also quite a lot of the civils design has already been progressed in terms of the access road and drainage and attenuation tanks and so on. The bulk of the work that is required to get through to reserved matters will be the detailed design of the buildings. And as Ian will talk about later, we're very much looking at an off-site manufactured solution. We need to do more work on the site servicing requirements, not just what's being taken out, but also what could be fed back into the grid. And also we need to do more work about the landscape and the detailed cut and fill design. And also, because this is a community scheme, how we're going to use those spaces in between the homes. This next slide shows really what we're thinking about in terms of options for procurement and delivery. The first one, which is business as usual, a traditional design and build, we may go to, but we don't think that quite does it in terms of the long-term solution provider taking ownership of every element of the design. We're probably going to be looking at one of the 3 options below, where ideally we would want a company or group of companies to take the scheme as it is now, design every element of it right the way through, and then operate it for a period of time. We may not get all that way, and really it's the questionnaires that you guys complete and send back in that will help us decide which of these is the most feasible and going to be the most effective. So if there is a suitable pool of companies or consortia who can take on all aspects of the design and construction, we'll issue invitations to tender in line with option 2. Or, for example, if there's a strong case for aspects such as landscaping and M&E to be designed separately to the buildings, i.e. building manufacturers stick to their core business, do what they do, and the other elements are designed by others, then PEC Homes will issue invitations to tender in line with option 1. But the aim is to progress all design work up to REBA 3 and to lodge the Reserved Matters application by December of this year. So, just to underline that, we'll be looking very carefully at the questionnaires that you guys send in. And now that's the end of my part. I'll hand over to Ian, who will talk through the energy sprung approach.
Thanks, George. And if you could stop sharing your slides, that'd be great, and that will allow Ian hopefully to load his.
Yeah.
Ian, do you want to just introduce yourself before we go to the screen?
I will. My name is Ian Hunter Croft. I work with Energy Strong UK, working nationally as part of the market development team. And as Alistair has said, I'm also a board member of PEC Homes as well. Could the team just confirm to me that you can see my screen?
Can, yeah.
I'll just go to full screen. There. Okay. So I'm just going to run through briefly how the Energy Strong approach works, where it comes from and how it works, and what it means for delivering net zero new build here in the UK. The word Energy Strong is Dutch for energy leap, and it's the name that's been given been given to the Dutch government-led approach to delivering net zero homes, both retrofit of existing homes and new build homes as well. It's been developed over the last 10 years in the Netherlands, and it's been operating at scale since 2017. And they've built 7,800 new homes and another 5,000 retrofit homes up until the end of 2019 in the Netherlands. And that market is continuing to grow and be delivered. We, as Energy Strong UK, our mission is to adapt that successful Dutch approach for the UK market. And we are 100% publicly funded by the European Union and also by the Mayor of London. We're delivering his Retrofit Accelerator Homes programme, which is about retrofit. And we're also funded for a local project in Devon called ZEBCAT, Zero Energy Buildings Catalyst, which is delivering 16 retrofits in properties owned by Exeter City Council, Sanctuary Housing and North Devon Homes. The project's led by Devon County Council. And we also have a part of that project which is about building the longer term pipeline, not just doing 16 homes and stopping, doing 16 homes as a demonstrator to show that this works, and building a bigger pipeline of both retrofit and new build properties to build the volume that we need to make this a viable industry. And that project is also funded by the European Union. So this slide here, the cars at the front of these properties, the one on the left was built in 1974 in a factory, and the one on the right was built in a factory just a couple of years ago. But the car on the right is over 100% more energy efficient than the car on the left. It's also a lot safer, and it's a more desirable product. It's got bells and whistles like aircon and stereo and all the rest of it. But the real killer thing about it is that it's significantly cheaper in real terms than the car on the left was when it was made. And that's what industrialized sectors of the economy tend to do. They build better products, continuously innovating, and they deliver those better products at a lower real terms price than in the past. So just jumping to the homes behind the cars. So the car on the left, you'll recognise, it's a typical 3-bed semi, the typical house archetype in the UK. It's built in a field about the same time as the home was built in as the car was built in the factory, early 1970s. Although it has had a few things done to it incrementally, like UPVC double glazing, it's probably had cavity wall insulation and loft insulation installed. It's probably only about 30% more energy efficient than it was when it was built. So the home on the right is a net zero home. It's actually a retrofit, this one, but it could be a new build. I mean, looking at that, it kind of looks like a new home, doesn't it? Built right up next to an old home. And I'm using this slide just to illustrate some general principles around the Energy Strong approach. So this is an old home that's better than a new home. It's better than current building regs for new build home. It's guaranteed to be warm and comfortable every day for an affordable price for the tenant, affordable energy cost, and also affordable maintenance cost long term for the building owner. And that's guaranteed by the solution provider. It's built in a factory. Those panels that you can see on the front, typically there'll be one panel for the bottom story, one panel for the upper story, a roof module that includes insulation and the PV sitting on the top, all built in a factory and financed by the building owner off those long-term guaranteed savings. And it is net zero energy and very nearly zero emissions. So it's not on gas. There's no gas here. There's no gas in the Energy Strong approach. It's an electric only solution, but electrification that's affordable and it's grid friendly as well. At the back of the property, there's an energy module, which would include a heat pump, a thermal store, a hot water tank, a battery store, smart monitoring and controls, all installed in a factory in a box, delivered to site very quickly and installed quickly. So over time, as the grid decarbonises, this becomes a zero carbon home. Right now, it's probably 90% less carbon emissions than the house on the left, and it's electrified. So as the grid decarbonises, the residual electricity import, it becomes lower and lower carbon until it becomes zero. But it's net zero energy over the course of a year. It produces as much electricity from PV in the course of a year as it consumes over the course of a year for heating, hot water and appliance use. In energetics terms, the typical UK house as it is today, not a new build house to building regs, but a typical UK existing house, 21,500 kilowatt hours a year, most of which is heating and hot water. And the Energy Strong house is a fabric first approach. So the heating and hot water demand is significantly reduced to say about 2,000 kilowatt hours a year. The appliances are using about 2,300 kilowatt hours a year for normal use. LED lighting, efficient appliances, any gas hob replaced by an efficient electric induction hob. And it's generating about 4,300 kilowatt hours per year, which nets off over the course of a year to be net zero energy. Modern methods of construction and off-site approaches are a very important part of the Energy Strong approach, because the traditional way that we do things, building things not in factories but in fields or on site, is not the most productive way of using labour. Using skilled trades on site like electrics, like plumbing, is not an efficient use of labour. Using wet materials that have to dry, that have have problems with at different times of the year, is not the most productive way of building things. Factories is where we need to be building the majority of components that go into houses. These are Dutch factories that are building components for the Energy Strong new build and retrofit market. This big photo on the left is a robot in a Dutch factory that's building integrated cassette panels that has the insulation, the final finish, the triple glazed windows and doors already installed, and they fly off the production line on the bottom right there and get delivered straight to site and installed quickly. The top right is an energy module with in this case, an air source heat pump. This one is designed to fit in the roof space where a Velux window would fit. Beneath the roof, the green roof level, is that module that includes the heat pump, the ventilation, the storage, and the smart metering and controls. And we also need a business model to pay for net zero buildings. And this is an intrinsic part of the Energy Strong approach, is this business model. Whereas before, and I'm taking the example of social housing here, where and we're using social housing as a launching market because it can bring volume and scale into the market to help solution providers develop products that then can be marketed to the private rented and the owner occupied sector. But in the social rented sector, business as usual today is the tenant pays the housing provider rent and the tenant pays the utility company for energy. But in the net zero Energy Strong home, the tenant still pays rent to the housing provider, but they also pay a comfort plan charge. Part of what was their energy bill is going to the housing provider. The housing provider uses that additional income and the savings of their maintenance program long term to finance the net zero investment. The tenant still has a small residual energy bill for import of electricity at peak time, and there's also the standing charge in that payment as well. But overall, the tenant gets a guaranteed low cost, total low cost energy bill plus comfort plan charge for guaranteed comfort. This is an example of new build in the Netherlands. It's not brick built, it's brick effect finished, all built in a factory, a panelized approach in this case, with PV integrated into the roof system there. We've delivered 67, I think it is, Energies-From retrofits in the UK. We haven't yet completed a new build project. So this Plymouth project is the first in England and Wales. And we have another project in Scotland that's underway at a similar stage of development, slightly more advanced, for 11 new build homes. We have factories in the UK that are capable of doing MMC, modern methods of construction, building things in factories. This is the factory of Local Homes back in 2018 that built the panels for the first retrofit project in the UK in Nottingham. This company, Local, have upgraded their factory facilities, a bigger factory, building new build homes for social housing. But we haven't quite reached the level that we're at that the Dutch have got to, where they've got digitized, robotized production lines, building bespoke panels for each individual property off a production line that is going to operate for many years to come. And the reason we don't have that here is that we haven't really got the market going for new build yet. We have for retrofit, and there's some interchangeability of components between retrofit and new build, so the two markets can support each other. But what we really need to build in the long term is a volume market that allows the supply chain to invest in industrialized approaches. This is an example of what this can mean on site. This is a Dutch site, a terrace of new builds. Here, these photos were taken within a couple of hours of each other. On the same day. Top left, you can see the last roof panel unit being craned into the site, come direct from the factory, craned off a lorry. The top right, you'll see the energy module going in. That's a version that I showed you earlier, and it's just slotting into that roof space. A quick job to connect that up. And the bottom right, you can see how that has come from the factory and just craned directly off the lorry over the ridge line and into that slot. And then the bottom left there, you see just a couple of hours later, you've got a roof finished with the M&E solutions installed, just waiting to be connected internally. So this can really revolutionize the time span that it takes to deliver new build homes to net zero. And I'll talk now just a little bit about the three principles that the Energies-From approach includes to deliver this. So the first principle is the client is asking for a new product in a new way. The client's asking for a design, build and guarantee of performance long-term contract against an outcome-based performance specification that's summarized there on the left. So we're aiming for net zero energy consumption, or as close as can be achieved to it given the situation, location and archetype, with a bundle that includes plug power, hot water and warm rooms, with energy costs and maintenance costs to achieve that guaranteed to be affordable. It's a fabric first approach, so we're expecting a good level and with air quality and fire issues dealt with above and beyond to current building regs or beyond. So it's an assured quality for the long-term product, with efficient delivery on site using off-site approaches that's affordable for the tenant and the resident, and it's financed from long-term energy and maintenance savings. And above all, it looks great and it feels great. The design is really critical to create a desirable product, which is ultimately going to drive this market. The second element is that there's a strong focus on the people who live in the homes. This is an easy to understand product that works for people. It's got guaranteed comfort for a fixed monthly cost. So this is a bit like turning utility bills into a mobile phone type bundle, where the phone comes for free. It doesn't really, it's wrapped up in the monthly charge, but it appears that it comes for free. You get your guaranteed amounts of data, your minutes of calls and your free texts. Well, this is a bit like that. The Energies-From approach for housing is a bit like that. You get your guaranteed temperature all the year round, You get guaranteed volumes of hot water, enough for your household and household, with enough plug power, lighting, appliances in the bundle for a fixed fee. And it also, you get guarantees that it looks good, feels good, no more damp and mold, guaranteed for the long term. The third thing that we need to do to make Energy Strong work is that we need to create a market for this. We need a volume market that enables the supply chain to invest in the innovation and invest in the industrialization over time. So this is what we do as Energy Strong UK. As a market development team, we work independently with landlords to help them understand the product and bring projects to market, like we are doing with Plymouth Energy Community and PEC Homes. We work with the supply chain to help them understand the market and how to access it. And we also work with governments to create the right funding and policy environment to make this market grow. So we've got market development teams, not just in the UK, but in the Netherlands, in Germany, in France and in Italy. And this is what we all do. We work together to develop this approach to net zero homes across the wider European markets. So I'll just finish up here with our view of the business case for new build in the UK. On the left-hand side there, that's the traditional approach, built on site to current building regs. You've got the site costs, which are the same whatever you do. You've got the finance costs, which are largely the same whatever you do. You have a capital build cost, and then the landlord or the owner has an operational cost that largely they don't really know what that operational maintenance cost is going to be over the long term. They hope it's going to be low, often it isn't. And actually something that shouldn't be forgotten is that all homes have got to be net zero in the next decade or two. So there will be a retrofit cost above and beyond the new build cost of building regs today, often not factored in, and it's an unknown cost. If you move to the right-hand side of the middle bar graph here, so this is the Energy Strong home today. Site costs, finance costs the same. There's a capital build cost, of course, but there's an additional net zero energy capital cost as well. This is the cost of getting this property to net zero in terms of fabric and M&E. At the moment, we think that might be somewhere around 12 to 15%, maybe as low as 10% of additional cost, depending on the archetype. But we think that cost will reduce over time. For a prototype, the prototype costs are always going to be a bit higher. The operational cost is guaranteed by the solution provider, and that's what we're asking for with the PEC Homes project. And we're also asking for guaranteed energy costs. And that allows the landlord, it gives the landlord headroom in those energy savings to charge the occupant for a comfort plan charge that goes to the landlord and is used to finance that net zero energy capital cost over the long term. And the nature of that comfort plan we are very open to. It could be a bundle that includes not just energy and comfort, but it could also include, say, services like broadband and internet next. That could all be bundled together into a single charge in a new build context. And on the right there, over time, we would expect the prototype additional cost to reduce to nothing, and that you've got a net zero energy capital cost integrated into that capital build cost, which is lower than it is today, and of a business case that we think is at least as good, if not better, building to building regs today. So if the business case is better than building to big building regs, why don't we build to net zero energy? It's what we've got to do anyway. That's what we're aiming for. So finally, that's me. If you've got any questions after this, please do get in touch and we'll give you some opportunity to ask some questions now as well.
Thank you, Ian. So we've had a couple of questions. So this is the section where we're talking, an opportunity for you to quiz us a little for us to respond to those queries. So just going through those. So if anyone's got queries, they can put them in the chat function. So if you wave over the MS Teams thing, you get a little speech bubble. Pop that up and then pop your message in there, and we'll do our best to respond. So so first question we've had, George has already kind of put a response out there for us, but I will reiterate that again, so for those not seeing the chat function can hear it. It was a question in relation to our proposed time frame. So I'm just going to read that question. So the intention is to, so the question, not the answer. Richard Harper from Hawley, is the progression to stage 3 in December 2020 and reserve matters moving ahead, regardless of the selection of the procurement approach? George, do you want to, you drafted a question answer to that I posted in the chat. Do you want to just answer that?
Yeah, sure. We really need to look at the outcome of the questionnaires. You know, if there's a group out there, if we've got 5 or 6 that we can tender to that could design every aspect of the scheme, then that is how we would appoint. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get all the legals of the full design, build and guarantee approach organised that quickly. So, you know, a pre-construction services agreement's the likely way we might go. But, you know, we're mindful that we're speaking to a lot of off-site manufacturers whose core business is to build the homes, and they would want, you know, a clear development platform and for the M&E to be designed by somebody else. So very early to say, but, you know, we've got draft invitations to tenders for different options that are ready to go, you know, pretty well after we've had a chance to review what comes back.
Thank you, George. That's helpful. Again, anyone who got follow-up questions to that, ping them into the chat. John Lloyd from Hawley supports the approach and questions, who backs the performance guarantees and how does this fall back upon the design consultants and our insurance? Ian, can you share any perspective on that from the previous work?
Sure, yes. So what's actually been guaranteed is a number of things. What's been guaranteed is the energy performance, so that it is net zero, so that the energy bill is low. But also, what's been guaranteed is the maintenance cost to the landlord over the long term as well. And we have a business case here that, as a starting point, works off a 30-year business case, and that can be varied to fit the scheme or fit the requirements of each individual project. But that's the sort of term that we're thinking about. And obviously, with new build, you're looking for 60 years of fundamentally 2 mortgageable terms for a property to exist for and be maintained for. So there are different components within the home, of course, and each of those will have their own warranties behind them. A fabric system is going to last a lot longer than a heat pump, for example. So what we procure against is a maintenance schedule that includes replacement of kit when it's required, so that the landlord has a horizon, has a long-term view of what the cost is going to be to maintain the property, replacing components as they're required to be replaced. If for any reason those components don't perform, that they have to be replaced, well, it's either the warranty or the extended warranty that would cover that off, or the longer term overall maintenance guarantee that's provided by the solution provider. So we are actually quite flexible in how the guarantee is structured, particularly as we're dealing with prototype projects. The overall aim is to give security for 30 years that backs off the business case, but we fully accept that that's a difficult ask for the supply chain to deliver for a first prototype. So we're prepared to accept different terms for different components within the overall guarantee. That's component or performance or maintenance or any elements of that.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, just running through in further questions. So we've had Alex Lammy from LHC Design. He's questioning, do you have scope to move outside of the Plymouth boundary, or any sites specific to Plymouth, or are your sites specific to Plymouth only? So no, I mean, there's a job to be done in Plymouth, but there's a job to be done elsewhere. So, you know, we've got an opportunity to test it. Plymouth Energy Community is an organisation that works in and around the Plymouth area. We're not wedded to a particular administrative boundary. We just know where our kind of local expertise is, I guess. In that context, we're already working with a number of other organisations across Southeast Cornwall and South Devon that have similar community-led housing aspirations, and we're trying to raise their game and exploring with them their appetite for an energy sprung approach.
We also have the pipeline that we have across the UK for energy sprung projects includes landlords who are wanting to develop new build homes using the energy sprung approach too. They're in Devon locally, they're in the wider southwest, they're in London as well. Particularly, there's a good pipeline in London, and they're elsewhere in the West Midlands and the East Midlands and in Scotland as well. So the pipeline is encouraging. This is the first concrete project that's going to come out to the market for delivery. So it's the first chance to get involved with a project and develop some market credentials that can feed into the pipeline that's coming behind it.
Thanks, Ian. John Cape, you asked, would you consider a private wire arrangement with a single boundary meter for the site? I think, well, at the moment we're looking for a solution provider that can provide a package rather than just the energy supply. So, you know, we're looking for a package that brings energy efficiency and renewable energy supply together as part of that solution. There could be a scenario where within that solution provider there are, you know, I guess subsets of that, in terms of you know, a organisation just providing the energy supply into it. That could potentially work, I think. But yeah, we're open to explore that, but we're not really wanting to pick off one conversation just right now just around energy supply.
And the fundamental of the approach is by procuring outcomes and not specifying particular outputs or products. What we're saying is, you're the experts, we're asking you to guarantee the performance. Therefore, we are giving you the opportunity to design the best system that works within those outcome parameters that we want. So we're giving the freedom over to the solution provider to design the best system that works within those cost and performance parameters, which could well include private wire. On a site like this, you know, it's a greenfield site. You know, you've got lots of roofs, you've got lots of opportunity for communal heat and power, actually. So yes, you know, that could be something that you consider, but it's not something that we specify. It's something that we're going out to the market and asking you to consider what is the best solution and to tender on that term. And that's in return for the fact that we're asking you to guarantee it. So it's got to be a solution that you're confident in to guarantee.
There's a similar sort of question posed from Rosalie. Apologies, if I haven't pronounced that correctly, from Thermalon. So do you have the scope to pilot new insulation materials within the scope of the project? I think, yeah, innovation is required, and to make it, I think again it's down to those consortia of the solution provider can bring together that. We won't be specifying Thermalon within it, our project, but if the consortia come forward, the solution provider comes forward with those and is comfortable that that product kind of can achieve the outcomes that Ian mentioned, then yeah, there's scope for it to be included within the game plan.
And what this approach delivers as well is consideration from the supply chain of what the whole life cost to the landlord actually is. That's what we're really procuring on here. It's not build us the cheapest thing that you can and disappear. You know, it's building something for us that you're going to stand behind in terms of its performance, that gives the landlord confidence that the whole life cost of the building for them as a landlord and for their residents, their tenants, is affordable. And that's quite a different approach to the way we build houses traditionally at the moment.
Peter King has asked Ian, does thermal comfort, air quality and acoustics form part of the performance guarantee?
So you'll see in one of the appendices that we've shared, we've shared the detailed new build specification and the management framework as well for how that works. And you'll see that thermal comfort and air quality is one of the outcomes. That does have to be measured and monitored. And yes, ultimately it does form part of the guarantee of the solution. It's kind of a red line that the air quality has to meet regulations in there, so that attention has to be paid to ventilation in the design in order to achieve that. But the core parts of the performance guarantee are the maintenance costs long term, it's the energy cost long term, and it's the energy performance long term, the net energy performance long term. Those are the core variables within the performance guarantee.
Thanks. Federico, you ask, do you accept proposals only from consortia or also from single companies providing one of the components of devices? George, do you want to just talk about where we're at with that?
Yeah, I think the ideal is for if there are single companies out there already made, but as far as consortia goes, yeah, we're interested to see people who have some partly formed ideas that we may be able to work with and actually encourage those consortia to be formed, or if people have those discussions themselves offline and come back to us with a more sort of mature agreement. Very open-minded at this stage.
And we've asked a question in the EOI questionnaire. We've asked a question which is, what can we do to help you to form into an entity that could successfully tender for this project? Do you need help with introductions? We've asked you a question in there which says, please tell us anything that you want to share with any other company that might be interested in working with you if you can't provide the whole solution yourself. And I think we would expect some companies out there to be able to offer the whole solution, or to be able to offer a solution with their own supply chain, or the supply chain, some in the supply chain might feel that it's better to form a consortium company to do this, to create an entity that you provide together within your collectively. And our main concern, or the client's main concern, is really that there's somebody standing behind this. Somebody, an entity, is able to guarantee the performance as well as deliver the quality that is required. So we're very open-minded, and we are fully appreciative that this is a new thing. We are not expecting a oven-ready supply chain out there operating at scale. It doesn't exist. We know that there are different components of this that are well proven and being installed across the country. We're looking to bring this together into a complete solution. And we are very open, flexible, and supportive of the supply chain. You tell us what you need from us to enable you to come together into an entity that can successfully tender for this.
Thanks, Ian. Just touching a similar point, you may have covered it, but George Gillow is asking, typically, what design lives of the technology would you be expecting? In particular, the roof-mounted air source heat pumps. What design life would you require?
So those were just examples. It doesn't have. This does not have to be a roof-mounted air source at all. We're not specifying that. We are specifying no technology or product or material or company or anything. We're specifying outcomes, and it's up to you, the supply chain, to decide how it should be put together. The question was about. Sorry, the question was about guarantee periods, was it, Alistair?
Yeah, design life. So
design life. Okay. So, in an ideal world for new builds, 60 years is common, isn't it? NHBC 60-year, 2 mortgageable timeframes is expected. Individual components don't last 60 years. Some do. Fabric can. Others has to be replaced. What we're looking for is the supply chain to provide a costed maintenance schedule that says which of their components that they've specified have to be replaced and when they have to be replaced, and that generates a cost. and tenders would be evaluated on that cost, that partly on that maintenance cost. So the lower the maintenance cost, the lower the energy bill, the greater the headroom there is for financing the capital costs. So those are variable figures that are evaluated on the cost element of the procurement. So what that does is it helps to drive you to specify the best value products rather than the cheapest components. It's about the best whole life value. So this is actually driving use of better quality equipment, because the whole life cost is being evaluated here, not just the cheapest initial delivery cost. So within a supply chain response, we'd expect each component to be itemized for maintenance and replacement. One way that you could provide some of the maintenance guarantee is to provide the manufacturer's warranties, and there might be an opportunity to purchase extended warranties for products, which is all helping you to build up that package of guarantee on the maintenance side. And components, it's going to be variable on individual product, but the overall cost is what we're looking for.
Thanks. John Capes just asked a simple question I can buy back. When do you need the EOI? So we're looking for responses by the 26th of June. That's clear. Nick Bolton asks an interesting question relating to the comfort plan. He says, to use the car analogy, does the performance guarantee come with ranges? MPG for cars is measured and stated in terms of different use circumstances. So is there a reasonable use policy for energy consumption? So that talks about that comfort plan, Ian.
Yes, very much, very much. The caveat on the guarantee to the tenant is normal use. If you want to heat to 25 degrees C, you can. You're not going to be disconnected, but you're going to pay extra for imported kilowatt hours at peak times for that. It's going to be a lot less than heating to 25 in a building regs house, because it's a very thermally efficient house, but there is going to be a bit more. If you want to have 5 tropical aquariums and a sun tanning lounge, that's beyond normal use for the plug power bundle. So that plug power normal use is bundled for normal use. So there are some protections there. We're not asking the supply chain to guarantee an open-ended use scenario at all. It's normal use, and that normal use is defined and it's measured and monitored as well.
Okay, I think I'm just going to take the last few because we'll run over time a little bit, but there's good questions coming. So one of the last ones are there is from Dan. Do you have an independent technology provider for the monitoring and verification of performance? Or do you expect that to become forward from the solution provider?
We expect that to come forward from the solution provider. So it's the solution provider's responsibility to design and install appropriate monitoring equipment that meets the specification, that provides all the output parameters that are described in the Energy Strong Maintenance Management Framework, which is one of the appendices you'll pick off the website. It's the solution provider's responsibility to provide that data as well, not just to the client, but also in a manageable form that drives positive behaviour to the resident as well. And we have one thing that we've done as Energy Strong UK recently is that we've let 6 design projects for different archetypes that we haven't delivered retrofit for to date, but also integrated monitoring and billing solutions as well that could apply to new build as well as retrofit. And yeah, so there are new integrated products into the market. I think Bill Box from Carnegie Systems is on the call. Bill's leading one of those consortiums, which is developing an adaptation of your shimmy system for performance management and monitoring and reporting, and in this case billing solutions as well. And there are others. There are other providers of monitoring and measurement equipment
So I think last question, just as a follow up on the comfort plan question, comes from Nick. Are those normal use outcomes stated in the ITT?
They will be, yeah. Normal use is defined, and in the ITT there'll be more information that helps you define that. And Energy Strong is a very pragmatic approach. It's pragmatic. If we could do something simply, we do it simply. We're not trying to overcomplicate things, and we think there is a relatively straightforward way of assuring that the guarantee, that the solution provider's guarantee is not compromised should abnormal use by the resident of the system of the house be taken. And I think if you read through the Energy Strong management framework, I think you'll get a flavour of that. But if you've got specific comments having read that, we'd be really grateful to hear them and put them into the EOI market survey response, please.
Okay, I'm going to call an end. I think we've kind of exhausted the questions. If we have missed anything, just prompt us again in the chat. We'll pick that up and we'll respond digitally offline. I'd like to thank you all for your time and interest and joining us with us today. It's an exciting stage of the project for us. There's a lot of exciting kind of conversations going and the building momentum behind our approach. So we look forward to receiving your expressions of interest, and then we'll, I think, probably be coming back. If we've got questions off those expressions of interest, we'll come back and have another conversations around that. And then, yeah, as George alluded to, that's well, he defined that's the timeline that we're looking forward to in terms of coming back and recruiting, procuring our design team. So, thank you all. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, George. Thank you, John and Kat, for support in the background. Most importantly, thank you to all of the organisations and individuals that have attended today. And we look forward to speaking to you further in the future. Thank you.